Started. We'll start with roll call.
Councilman Daly,
Here.
Councilman Duper,
Present.
Councilman Popescu. Here. Mayor Pro Tempore Leonard. Here. Mayor Rigsby.
Here.
Thank you.
Sounds like we have a quorum. We had no closed session, so item C is not needed. We'll start with invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Councilman Duper. Please stand. Are any items deleted or added?
No, sir.
Okay, we have one request for a comment from Dennis Green. Come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I'm usually here to talk about, well, first, my name's Dennis Green. I live on Scotch Lane in Ritchie Canyon. I usually like to talk about South Hill Preserves, but I kind of get the feeling that you guys just want to let anarchy rule out there. So we're not going to talk about that this evening. I'm here in response to a conversation I had with the mayor here a couple of weeks ago. We talked a little bit about quite a few things, but one of the things we talked about was the construction of 300 homes in Rancho del Prado and the traffic that it's going to cause. You quoted a study saying that the effects are going to be pretty minimal. So I thought about that for a while, and I thought, okay, what's minimal? Like 1 minute a day. So you're going to lose an extra 1 minute a day driving in and out of the canyon. That comes about 20 minutes a month, 4 hours a day per person. With the latest data that I can find, there's about 4,000 cars that use the canyon at rush hour. That comes out to 16,000 hours a year of lost time that these people are going to do. Do these commuters want to give their time to Rancho Prado? I don't think so. Is Rancho Prado going to pay them for their time? I don't think so either. So if you don't want to give somebody something, they don't want to pay for it and they take it anyways, what is that called? It's called theft. So these people that you seem to esteem a little bit, they're a pack of thieves stealing our time. I'd like to close by saying it seems like the city of Loma Linda can't or won't do anything about this, saying the issue doesn't involve us. You couldn't be more wrong. I've been to a couple of meetings, and one of the things that these people are promising is a second egress out of the canyon. With all the options they have, they're talking about where their property butts up against Loma Linda at the north side. They're talking about using streets with a name like Anderson, Richardson, and your favorite, Mr. Mayor, Lawton. So this will add an extra 1,000 cars to those neighborhoods every day. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask a question for
Sure.
clarification?
Sure.
And I'm sure I should be.
He's asking you a question. Yeah.
Well, I'm asking whoever can answer it.
I wasn't sure who was talking.
I thought the issues in Ritchie Canyon with Loma Linda and Colton were with LAFCO. Am I wrong about that?
What do you mean the issues are with LAFCO? Explain.
Well, where's the border? Who's responsible? We got into all of this with the donated land and so forth years ago.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure where that's all at right now. I'm looking at whoever can answer it, 'cause
That might be
that's just
actually
open
more of an
question.
extended conversation you probably should have with Rich, maybe
Yeah,
outside of the council
we can
meeting.
talk
Yeah.
about that. LAFCO made a change in the sphere of influence, but there was no change in the city boundaries, and that cannot be changed without this city council's approval. So that's nothing that can happen without your approval down the road.
So when you're talking about this development, Prado Lane, I'm familiar with.
Right.
And so I assume it's,
Well, it's the end of Prado and also at the end of
Crystal Ridge.
Crystal Ridge, thank you, I can never remember that. Both of those go up into the mountains and they
Yeah.
dead end at the edge of this property that these people want to build on. And then that property goes from the edge of Colton, what's the edge of Colton now, to the edge of the South Hill Preserves. They have something like 207 acres, and they want to develop it with all these.
so I guess what I'm unclear on is what is our sphere of influence related to boundaries and developments, and what is LAFCO's?
LAFCO doesn't control
I mean,
uh,
Colton,
development. Colton has jurisdiction over the Colton city limits,
yeah,
and Loma Linda has jurisdiction over the property located within our city limits.
right.
The sphere of influence boundary is just a future planning line on a map. It doesn't affect the current jurisdiction for development. So this project that's being referenced, my understanding is within the city limits of Colton, so they have jurisdiction
Not right
over
now.
that development.
So then
If
why are we
it's-
talking about it in here?
Well,
It's under the sphere of influence, it's not in the city of Colton yet. It has not
if
been
it's,
annexed.
if it's
So
in
now we're
the,
back to LAFCO.
if it's an unincorporated area, then it would be county.
It's,
So.
I don't know how much we're allowed to discuss this as a non-agendized item.
Well, we can't take any action, obviously.
I'm just
The
seeking
question was asked
understanding
about-
because I'm confused.
Yeah, so I was just responding to the effect of the sphere of influence boundary
Right,
line, which
right.
is a planning technique for LAFCO, where they look towards sometime in the future adjusting boundaries to more accurately reflect the ability of cities and jurisdictions to provide services
Right, right,
in the future.
right.
But they cannot change the city limits by themselves. We can veto any proposed deletion of property from our city limits or transfer to a different city. And any development, of course, within our city limits, we control.
And so the development that Mr. Green, am I correct, is referring to is within the Loma Linda city boundaries.
It is
No.
right now, under the sphere of influence of Colton, but
There's
it
where I
is
get
Loma Linda
confused. That's where I
property.
get confused.
It's where I live is under the same thing. Scotch Lane is Loma Linda, but it is recently put under the sphere of influence for Colton.
But it's
So
still
you're
within-
here looking for some kind of discussion and ultimately a resolution, not tonight, but
Right.
at some point. And
Well,
I'm not
there's a
clear
lot of
on-
issues, but I'm just using this one issue to maybe get you guys talking about it. and-
No project out there has ever been brought to the city of Loma Linda. Anything that's going on is going to the city of Colton. We have not
See, they're trying to bypass,
That's the answer I was looking
We
for.
they're
have not
trying to
received
bypass
any
it, is what they're
project,
doing.
and
It really, it's pretty complex. I would suggest meeting with Rich and having a longer conversation about it. It's probably not something.
No,
we
but
can-
that's fine,
Yeah.
but the city council and the citizens should be on the same page with this.
I agree.
But there apparently is a project in another jurisdiction that we do not have jurisdiction over. Anybody who's aggrieved by that has the opportunity to contest the item in front of the jurisdiction that's processing the application.
And that would be
Not here.
Colton or LAFCO?
It would be Colton.
Colton,
LAFCO does not process
yeah.
developments.
well, according to what I know, LAFCO is going to get involved towards the end. When everything's been okayed, they're going to get involved in the annexation of those piece of property. And if they do what they did last time, when the folks at I think it's Arizona State University owns that piece of
Yeah,
property.
Yeah,
Okay, they want to go to Colton. But LAFCO said, okay, we might as well throw in Scotch Lane with them.
Well, that cannot happen without Loma Linda's approval.
You know, it already happened as far as sphere of influence.
No, the
That-
jurisdiction did not change.
That didn't happen.
The sphere of influence did.
No, the piece about Scotch Lane. So it's really complex and complicated.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm suggesting we.
No, I was told by LAFCO, I went to the meeting when they did it, and they said, you are now under the sphere of influence of Colton.
Right, which, as I indicated, is a future planning
Right.
line on a map.
But they're going to do the same,
But
what's
the-
going to stop them from doing the exact same
They-
thing
By
when these other,
code, they are not allowed to change city boundaries without our city's approval.
well, I'd like to
and-
think that.
Well,
I'd like
that's
to
true.
think you're on our
I can give you
side.
the citation later if you'd like, or you can talk to LAFCO and they'll tell you the same thing. And I did speak to
Last time I
LAFCO
talked to them, they
staff
just said, we can do whatever we want.
on the sphere of influence, but not on the jurisdictional boundaries. And the boundaries are what control development.
So that's the purpose. I'm sorry to take us down this pathway, but I had some confusion, and obviously it's complex.
Right. Well, there's a lot of issues about this. The majority of the issues that everybody I talked to, there's a bunch of ad hoc committees, people that started different things is the traffic issue. They're talking about adding 1,000 cars a day to the traffic. And you can go on and on and on. There's all
No,
kinds of things.
I know there's serious traffic issues up
Yeah.
that canyon. I
And
understand.
like I said, Mr. Mayor Rigsby said some study, everything's gonna balance out. But even if it balances out, you're adding more cars, it's gonna take more time. And that's, my figures show. And so hopefully you folks are on our side.
To the extent we have any influence,
Exactly.
yeah.
Thanks again.
Okay, item number 1, I'll open the Housing Authority Board so we can have a joint meeting regarding a mid-year budget review.
Just waiting for the presentation to come up. Mayor, council members, this is the mid-year budget review. We did take it to the Budget Committee on February 20th to present it to them. We're just going to summarize it briefly. There's not too many changes, but we want to highlight some of them. So this first slide here, we're going to cover the general fund, and we're going to cover the changes to the revenue. The main revenues that are increasing are our sales and use tax, our transient occupancy tax. Then we have some license and permitting increases due to development, and we also have some intergovernmental and service charges as well that are increasing. You'll see a huge decrease here due to, this is an accounting change that we're correcting in the budget. Before, when we used to do economic incentives, we would budget an offset in the expenditure side to the revenue coming in. Per accounting standards, we now have to reduce the revenue. So it's now a GASB pronouncement 77, which requires us to abate the revenue instead. So you'll see it here as a reduction of revenue. And this amount will cover the whole incentive for the year, so it's already what was budgeted and what we're projecting the increases will be. So you'll see it for the sales tax here and then for the TOT tax there. So that's why in total we show a negative of revenue, but we actually do have increases to revenue due to sales tax again, the TOT tax, and then development activity. Questions? Here we show the enterprise funds, and we're showing increases in the use of money, which is basically interest earnings, charges for services in the sewer fund, for just charges for, due to rate increase and new connections. So, and then in the LLCCP, we're showing increases in service charges for some commercial activity. And then in the, again, in the water fund, we're showing decrease in interest due to the cash balances. We had some projects last year, and then we also did the payment of the unfunded liability, so our balances were lower. We are showing some increase for service charges here, for, again, for the rate increase and new connections to the system. You'll see significant increases in other funds, especially the enterprise capital funds and then the capital project funds, and that's all related to development activities for new construction. Lennart Homes is progressing faster than we anticipated, so we will be getting in for the development activity for those funds. We do have some special revenue funds for like Measure I and gas tax, and then we do have in the Housing Authority some loan repayments and interest earnings on that. So for total change to revenues, we are projecting an increase of close to $3.8 million total revenues for the city. Here we're going to summarize the expenditure changes we're proposing. Again, here it's going to look a little odd because you're seeing a negative. Oops, back up. You're seeing the negative in administration, which is the pulling out of the incentive payments. But we are asking for some increases in this. The major one will be $2 million for an additional payment to the unfunded liability. And then we are asking for some salary increases for temporary staff as we're going through the software implementation and finance. And we are asking for some funding for the 50th anniversary, for the parade and materials for the 50th anniversary. So those are the major increases in the administration budget. For the community development budget, you'll see the increases, and that's, again, related to development activity. We have a contract for the building inspector. They get 65% of the building activity, so we're increasing the cost. There is some funding for the development code cleanup, and we also have
sheriff,
yeah.
Okay.
In public safety, we'll have this reduction. When we developed the original budget, we projected an increase to the Schedule A, so we had budgeted for an increase. When we got the actual Schedule A, when we proposed it to council, there was a request for an increase due to that adjustment. So we kind of double budgeted a certain amount, so we're reducing that amount. Fire services, we're requesting an increase. There's adjustments to the salaries. So there's increases in certain departments and decreases. We also are asking for funding for a fee study and the ESRI software or so those are some of the major increases there. And then in public works, again, we're asking for some adjustments to the.
And is the Public Works increasing staffing?
No, sir, this is one-time item.
One time.
Yeah, like tree trimming, replacement, the monument sign that got hit on Redlands Boulevard. Some
Tree trimming, signs, and then facility maintenance to the parks
replace air
and
conditions.
and just facilities in City Hall, the library. So these are facility increases,
Okay.
costs that we're requesting.
Because we've got more and more weeds and medians and stuff, so if we have to increase staff, I'm for it.
And then one of the
Okay.
major items in Public Works is also, there's going to be a perimeter fence around the courtyard for security purposes.
Since it's a blip, so I can go to one-time expenditure.
So in the other expenditure changes, again, to the enterprise funds, we have the sewer fund, a corresponding increase in contractual services to San Bernardino County for the treatment. We have some increase in LLCCP for hardware for the network, and then the water fund, we have increase for, yes, correct, sorry. I keep the unfunded liability, it was both in the water and sewer fund for their proportional share of personnel costs. And then we show reduction in the enterprise funds. There is a water line that will be delayed.
No, the water line that part of the IVDA improvement down Mountain View, they're not gonna have it, the whole thing completed this fiscal year. So I budget half this fiscal year and the other half for next fiscal year. So when we pay it back.
Okay, special revenue funds, there was a circulation project that was funded in there, and we're removing that.
Yes.
And then in capital projects, again, there was a circulation projects that's being removed out of this.
And this is, for example, California Street widening, it's under design right now, but we're not gonna have it start until next fiscal year, so I moved some of the money for next fiscal year.
For what project?
California Street widening from Redlands to Orange Street, so I'm gonna do it in phases, so, because we don't have all the right-of-way, so it take a while longer.
So these schedules here will show you just the impact of the mid-year proposed revenue changes and expenditure changes. So this will be the impact on the fund balance. So overall, general fund, you'll see a decrease, well, an increase of expenditures for 1.8. Then in overall enterprise funds, due to the increase of sewer and then the decrease in water, you'll see the decrease of just 5,500 overall. And then these are all the other funds. So total-wise, the city, you'll see an actual change in fund balance for the proposed mid-year of 5.7 million. These next schedules will show you what the change in total fund balance is. And this is, we also have a change in our beginning fund balance because once we complete the audit, we update the beginning balances. When we do the initial budget, they're based upon projections of how we're going to end the prior year and then when we actually end. So we did end the year with an increase of 2 million, over 2 million. So we're proposing, then we're going to change. And so the overall impact with the original budget, any changes, and the new mid-year numbers will be about 2.2 million to the general fund. There are no changes to the assigned or the committed balances. And then just overall in the enterprise funds, again, there's a change. You're seeing an increase in fund balance. Actually, a decrease, sorry, about 200,000. The increase is in the capital funds. You'll see significant increase again. We're having higher revenues and the reduction of expenditures for projects. So again, so overall, the city will end just with a proposed change of just slightly 2 million, just a 2.6 million decrease in fund balance, and that includes the payment for the unfunded liability of about 2.4 million. So at this time, if there's any questions, we can answer the questions.
Let me make a simple explanation. Because last fiscal year,
I notice when you say simple explanation, you look directly at me, so
well, no,
that's appropriate. That's appropriate.
Is, because last fiscal year, we ended the general fund with $2.7 million in surplus. So what I'm proposing is we spend $2 million of that general fund to pay down our unfunded liability.
Right,
And the remaining $700,000, I spend about $600,000 into our one-time expenditures. And so therefore, we still have money left over. So our end is still more than
Yeah.
what we planned for last fiscal year. The same thing with the water and sewer fund, because we completed a couple capital improvement projects at less than what we budgeted. We have money left over that we can pay down our unfunded liability. So the city is doing very good. We should have a balance about a little bit over $6 million in our unfunded liability.
After this.
Correct. And because CalPERS, they're kind of
yeah.
2 year behind, so the number that they gave it to me in January is probably still high. So my goal is hopefully the number will be lower than 6.7. So we're doing very good.
How much total have we paid down since we did that other thing last year? 11 million. That's really good,
That's really good.
really good.
So our vast audience that are functioning on my simplistic level, we're doing really well in paying down our unfunded liability to
Right.
PERS, as well as maintaining a
Reserve.
a reserve.
Yes, we didn't
Yeah.
touch, our reserve stayed the same,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Totally impressed.
So the action that we are recommending is that the staff is recommending that City Council approve the net increase to revenues of $3.7 million and net decrease in appropriations of close to $2 million, as presented and summarized in the attachments provided.
So I'll make that motion along with a bonus for Deanna
And all of our staff.
And Sonia.
and her staff, yeah.
I think we should double her bonus.
Be
She
careful,
knows,
we
she
may-
knows how to multiply by 0.
I know.
we have the ability to actually spend money, so we don't want to
Yeah,
make a
but,
motion that forces us to spend it.
but mine is more accurate. We're doubling her 0 bonus.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I'll second that with just a general comment. I did attend the budget committee, and we went through these figures in much more detailed and had lots of questions from the budget committee and myself, and overall, we're on the right path, so I'm pleased with the way we're going.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously. Congratulations. And the consent calendar,
I'll move it.
Second?
motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously. Any reports of councilmen?
I just have a general comment regarding to the comment that the gentleman had earlier. That's fine, you can give it to him, but just informational item, having been one of the people who've, and this is not for you to comment back, this is for the general audience. Having one of the people that been dealing with the passing of Measure V and regarding the land that we're discussing earlier, which really we shouldn't be discussing, and it's not really up for debate, but just to make it real clear that no matter what happens in Colton, where they put one house at 300, no road will be allowed to touch Loma Linda. So Measure V is not violated in any way. The only thing that land may affect is actually the 96 initiative, not Measure V. Measure V only ensured that there is no connection between Ritchie County and Loma Linda, and that will not happen regardless of what they do there. So anyway.
Okay. Any reports of officers?
Yeah, we all got that email today. It was kind of funny that, it wasn't funny, but somebody called and complained about parking issues by their house and so forth, or wrote an email. And so I wrote back and I said, we'll be talking about it tonight. And then we got the email back 3 hours later and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Jarvis already sent somebody over there to paint red curb red within 3 hours of the time he sent the email. Now, I think he probably already had it planned, I don't know. But it made it look like we're the most responsive thing ever, which was actually really good.
So from now on, she will be emailing you.
I took total credit for it, yes.
Well, there's one vote.
Yeah, that's one. Secondly, can you speak to that other issue that we talked about, that I had sent you the email about the people that were coming to Holder Crooks Park?
Yes, I will refer it to Lieutenant Matt Griffin. This is regarding the incident that happened at Holder Crooks Park.
Yes, on January 27th, we responded to a call.
Can you turn your mic on? I'm not.
Is that on?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. On January 27th, we responded to a report from a resident on Allen Way that there was a female individual outside of their residence that was throwing rocks. Our deputies responded, and they made contact with the female. And during our investigation, we determined that it was a company that actually brought individuals from group homes for kind of day visits, and they were visiting Holder Crooks Park that day. And this particular individual got upset about something, and she walked away from the park, and they followed her, trying to coax her back into the vehicle. And then ultimately she stopped at this house and she began throwing rocks at it. She threw rocks in the pool, got her way into the backyard. She broke a window with a shovel and did some damage to a vehicle. At no point did they call us, this particular company, and they have some type of a hands-off policy where they're not allowed to intervene or to touch the individuals in any way. So once our deputies got there, we detained the woman. We determined that actually she suffered from some mental conditions that wouldn't preclude her from being arrested, and so we arrested her for a felony vandalism. We had had one prior contact with that woman about a month or so earlier, where she had assaulted one of the handlers at the Dollar Tree. And so today I looked into it a little bit. That doesn't seem to be any kind of a situation where it's an inordinate problem where they're coming to the parks or anything like that. It seemed to be that thing was an isolated incident. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Yeah, because the homeowner sent me an email and said she had this vandalism, and she had looked into it, and it sounded like she was under the impression that this happens a lot, that not the vandalism necessarily, but the fact that this outside group homes are coming from other cities, coming to our city, and then having people roam free in the parks and so forth, causing this kind of damage. So she wanted to know we could check into it, so I appreciate you looking into it. So they found one incident, at least that they knew of, that where this had been going on.
Sounds like the zombie apocalypse.
But my understanding is when we've done some kind of research, that a lot of the people that go to Holder Crooks Park are not from Loma Linda. They're from neighboring communities. Is that not correct? I mean, it's nothing we can necessarily do about it. I'm just asking.
Well, I've never gone to Ford Park as a Redlands resident.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm not saying that we put gates up and you have to have a citizen's card. I'm just saying, it seems like sometime in the past, you reported to us that the majority of people that are using Holder Crooks Park are not Loma Linda residents.
Right, because we have a nice facility up there.
Yeah. And the majority were from,
I don't know. I just know that there's a lot of people that don't live here, but they use our park. But again,
yeah.
I didn't go interview them.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I don't mind using our park. It's abusing the park that I have a problem with.
Yeah.
And we've had to repair our facilities multiple times.
It's one thing for individuals to come here and there and everywhere, but I mean, if organizations are coming from somewhere else and using our park in that way, it seems like that should be something they should kind of work with you on that.
Right, when they want to use a function like birthday party or a function, then they are required to get a park use permit. Yes.
So would these individuals from a group home kind of
But because we don't have an inspector to go out there to make sure that they pull permit or not, so that's kind of a problem. And if they only have 5 people, then no, they're not required park use permit to just use a city park. I don't know how many people in their groups, so.
Can we use the curb your dog ordinance or something? They just don't let them wander?
I thought that was in the assistant city manager's job description to control the park.
He's in, animal control is his responsibility.
Okay, and since we're discussing parks, it was brought to my attention a couple weeks ago that one of the concerns some citizens have regarding a dog park is that even though there's parking spaces for the folks who are using the dog park, on the weekends, that area gets filled up with people who go hiking in the hills, and the people who have animals don't have a place to park, even though it's clear that says this is for dog park only. So he says we need to come up with something that would either enforce that to ensure that they can park there, and the only suggestion that I can come up with is that animal owners could get a special parking permit, and they can park there, and if you park there without that, then you get a ticket. So that would be a good way to ensure that only people who have animals can park there. So that's something we might want to discuss or consider, because it is used quite often. There's a lot of people with animals there. So anyway. something
Yeah,
to
but
consider.
at the same time, there's a lot of people using the trail and hiking up in the hill, so, and we have limit
I know. I
parking
know.
spaces, and then on the weekend, I don't have anybody to patrol the parking, so that's a challenge.
Right.
And the dog owner can park across a little way by the tennis court, so they can do that
But some
too.
of these people, the person I had talked to, some of them are senior citizens and they can't walk very far. So one other suggestion is perhaps make the sign that says this is parking for dog park only a little more prominent and at the front, because it's kind of hidden in the back. So that's probably another suggestion.
While we're talking about South Hills, can you give us any kind of an update on the Southern California Edison project? And I've had several people, and I explain it, I understand it, but the park that's under the wires that, you know, we're no longer maintaining for obvious reasons, but there are people that are complaining they miss that and so forth. What's the status of that project, and are we going to assume maintenance of that easement at some point?
So what we did, we went out and trimmed the trees, and we went out and fixed the irrigation system. And so let me find out from them the schedule is, because right now, as you can see, they work up in the hill.
Yeah,
And then after done with that, they will rewire the portion within the Edison easement from here all the way to the plant in the city of San Bernardino at Mountain View and San Bernardino Avenue. I don't have the schedule, but I will find out and bring it back.
So next council meeting, you could bring back a report?
That's in
on
2 weeks. I will try, sir.
that?
I
Yeah,
will.
well, and
Yes,
or
yes.
a month, you know,
Yes,
whatever.
yes, sir. Yes.
But we do have people that are kind of missing that easement and
Yes.
say it's looking pretty
Yes.
gross.
And then people complain to me about the helicopter flying on the
Yeah,
weekends too,
yeah,
so.
yeah. No,
yes.
they fly over my house too, so I understand.
Okay, any reports of officers? Hearing none, then the city council's adjourned, and we'll go to our already opened Housing Authority agenda. Any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Any reports from the public? No comments? Okay, the scheduled item 1 is taken care of. Consent calendar? There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition? Hearing none. It's approved unanimously. Any member reports? Any reports of officers? Hearing none. That's adjourned. The successor agency, any additional or deletional items?
No, sir.
Any reports from the public? Hearing none. Consent calendar.
And before we adjourn, again, I think it's important that
A motion, but you can,
we
we can't adjourn until there's a motion and a
Yeah,
second.
okay, well, so I got in early enough. No, but I think that the city staff, Deanna and her staff, as well as Charb and so forth, the fact that our city is in good shape financially is noteworthy in some of the difficult times we have. So I just want to make a last note on that, because I'm very impressed.
I second that, for sure. Is there a motion for the consent calendar? Okay, second. Okay, it dies for lack of a second. Oh, okay. Not this one. We did the other one. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved, and then we are adjourned. And that ends our agendas for tonight. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your attention. She got what she